All right. Thank you for the Confident Leader Masterclass. Thank you for joining. I'm Ben Fauske, author and coach. Excited to talk to you today about a couple of things. And first off, I want to talk about why are we here? Why are we talking about confidence? Well, ultimately, you're here because you want to help, because you're a leader, because you know that it's the old airplane metaphor of when the airbags come down, what do they instruct you to do? They instruct you to put the airbag on yourself first. Why is that? Because if I'm not healthy, if I'm not breathing, if I'm not capable of taking care of myself in this moment, I'm not going to be able to help anyone else. The same is true of confidence. It is impossible to build confidence in others when we don't have it for ourselves. It's not possible. When I'm not doing well, it's impossible for me to do well and coach confidence in others. So it has to start with ourselves. So that's why you're here. You may be a leader of other leaders. You may be new to leadership. You may simply be struggling with your own inner critic, your own negative self-talk. You may be wanting to become a more effective leader. You may be tired of the way you talk to yourself, tired of the way you demean yourself, tired of the way that you say things yourself that you would never say to anyone else. And you want to get some practical steps to move out of that space. So why confidence? Because to me, when you think about leadership, how many meetings, how many projects, how many times, how many client interactions, how many coworker interactions is confidence the culprit of it going wrong? When I do assessments with teams and I talk about coaching and I talk about what makes up dysfunctional or terrible teams, do you want to know what the number one, consistent number one, most repelling behavior that any team has? It's overconfidence. It's someone who thinks they're better than the rest of the team. It's someone who takes credit for other people's work. It is nauseating. And yet, most people struggle with the other end, this underconfidence. And the underconfidence is where our inner critic is raging the loudest. And overconfidence is when people's typically their inner critic is they attack others. And so why is it so important? Is because how many people does it take to ruin a team? It takes one person to completely ruin the dynamic of a team. And what we want to look at is what can we do as leaders to build confidence in ourselves and ultimately build confidence in others. And that's why we created the Confident Leader Formula. So the Confident Leader Formula was designed. So early in my career, I was a train wreck. I had many confidence issues. I was all over the place. Started to study confidence, started to become interested in it. Wrote a book in 2020 called Authentic Confidence, where I did a bunch of research about the best practices to build confidence. And eventually people started asking me questions. Ben, how do what's the process? What's the process of finding, leading, coaching, communicating with confidence? If this is your expertise, help us do that. And for many years, I taught this formula just by myself. So it was just me, one-on-one with another person. And then COVID hit, and everything needed to move to virtual, right? So I had to transform my business overnight. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. You talk about a confidence crisis. A lot of my clients called who I worked with in person, and I was very regional to Northeast Wisconsin. They said, Ben, we got to put a pause. COVID is happening, and we don't know when we're going to call you back. So I had another decision to make. What am I going to do? And luckily, my coach, Dr. Malkin from Harvard, who I've spoken about before, an amazing guy. His business was already virtual. And he said, okay, Ben, we're going to transform you into a virtual business. And what that allowed me to do is to start working with people from all over the country. And all of a sudden, my goal each year is to coach about 40 people a year. That was always my goal. And I went to having 104 people at one point that I was coaching through this process. And there's nothing that gives me more satisfaction and fulfillment than helping people find their own confidence breakthroughs. I love doing it. It's one of the great thrills of my life. And yet now I have 104 people I'm coaching individually And there's no way that I can continue this pace. There's no way I can continue to do this. So what I had to do was I basically had to find a different way of helping. And luckily, again, I hired another coach to help me do this. And that coach basically talked about putting it in a system that we can teach many people, and that's called the Confident Leader Formula. And that's what we're here to talk a little bit about today. That's the formula that I've been using for over 10 years with thousands of people to help them lead, coach, and communicate with confidence. There's 3 confidence transformations that we go through to help find that. So what I want to do today is just provide some free information. I want this to help you. I want you to, hopefully this is transforming information for you. And as we continue to talk about it, if learning more about the Confident Leader Formula is of interest to you, we're going to talk about that a little bit down the road. For today, this is our Confident Leader Masterclass, and I want to teach you the Confident Leader Formula. I want to show you what it is and how it works and how we can use it to benefit others. And the reason why we're doing this is because the majority of leaders that we worked with and surveyed say they struggle finding and maintaining confidence when they're triggered. So in other words, a lot of the leaders, what you're saying to me, and we've interviewed over 2,000 leaders about this, they can find confidence when they're in control of their own environment and they're prepared and they're ready. They can find confidence. Shoulders are back. I'm ready to go. It's when I'm triggered in the moment, when I'm surprised, when I don't know the content, when someone comes at me with questions that I don't know, that's when I'm triggered again. And that in that moment, I become a version of myself that I don't like. I say things I don't mean. I overreact. I get angry. I get irritable. And it's very, very frustrating. So that's what we're here to talk about today, is a little bit is what do we do about that. So the 3 confidence transformations are inner critic to inner coach to outer coach, and outer coach to confident communicator. So these are the 3 confidence transformations that we teach in the Confident Leader Formula. We take a deep dive into each one of these segments. And so we're going to start today with the inner critic that we just talked a little bit about. So how will your life change if you learned how to become your own executive coach? If you became the coach you've always wanted, what would happen? If you became the world's greatest executive coach, what would that feel like for yourself? I ask this question all the time. How many of you want to work for a great leader? Every hand goes up. How many of you want to have an exceptional executive coach? Every hand goes up. And then I'll say, how many of you are an exceptional executive coach to yourself? And guess what? Almost no hands go up. So you see the irony there, right? We want to work for great leaders. We want to have great executive coaches, yet we're unsure of how to do that for ourselves. And that's the airbag. We have to start with ourselves. Before we can become a great executive coach to someone else, we have to become a great executive coach to ourselves. And so what's the benefit to that? Well, this is what changes. Right now in your life, what do you say to yourself when you're successful? When something goes really, really well, what do you say to yourself? I can tell you before I started this work, what I would say to myself when I was successful, not much. Probably nothing. It was expected. It's what I was supposed to do. It was my job. And so I would just, things are rolling well and I win and success and new accomplishment and a great, amazing relationships, amazing results. And I wasn't celebrating. I wouldn't say anything. It would be just flat. That's expected. However, what do you say to yourself when you're a failure? We often have all sorts of things to say in that realm, don't we? When I'm a failure, I can say, you're a moron, you're an idiot, you should have known better. How could you do this? How could you miss this? What's wrong with you? What's the matter with you? Here we go again. You're never going to, you're not enough. This is never going to work for you. You're never going to be successful. You better never let this happen again. This is embarrassing. I bet everybody's talking about you. What's wrong with you? I mean, all of that, right? We have all sorts of language. Isn't that interesting? all sorts of language and specifics, and even language that I'm not going to share with us today, right? We've got certain go-to words and phrases when we're a failure that we say. And yet when we succeed, pretty stingy. Not much to say, especially in the area where we live, right? People are very humble. They don't want to appear brag. There's a term in the book that I talk about called bragaphobia. We don't want to do that. And what do you say to others? What do you say to others when they do well and when they fail? It's the inverse of what we say to ourselves. We have all sorts of language to use for others when they do well. And when they don't do well, we have a limited arsenal of words and phrases and things that we use. So isn't that interesting that when we coach others, we've got all sorts of appropriate language to affirm and compliment. And yet with ourselves, we have nothing. And yet for others, when people are challenged, it's difficult for us to address those challenges. And yet we have all sorts of things to say to ourselves. So what does that mean? What it means is when we're coaching others, we need to understand and identify when I'm not doing well, what do I say to myself? What will I do in the future? How can I get coaching and counsel for this? How do I own the changes that are happening? And then how do I resolve that core issue? And often what happens when we go through this process is what comes down, we end up saying, what's the core issue for me? What if I don't know what the core issue for me is? What if this negative self-talk and this low-grade anxiety just continue and I don't know what it is? What do I do? Well, to me, it starts with this transformation from inner coach to outer coach. It starts with knowing that self-assessment is greater than judgment. So what do I mean by that? If we're going to teach and help others in confidence work, here's what we must avoid. When we come in and say, wow, you seem very arrogant. Good luck with that conversation. Or you seem really insecure. Good luck with that conversation. Those are dangerous words and dangerous conversations, because as soon as we judge or blame someone, they pick up on that. They are instantly defensive. They're instantly on edge. And we've essentially lost the ability to influence that person. So self-assessment is always the best. So how, instead of judging others' confidence, judging our own confidence, how do we become self-aware, and how do we ask great questions? And the tool that we've used in the Confident Leader Formula are the confidence profiles. Some of you may have seen these before. There are 6 confidence profiles that we've worked on. And this is with St. Norbert College and Harvard University. We've worked on these 6 confidence profiles to help people self-identify where they are. It's peacekeeper, friend maker, inquisitor, negotiator, driver, and convincer. And here's how this works. So the peacekeeper is driven by moments of calm. So when you're addressing or talking to a peacekeeper, imagine the rhythm that you must take with this person. So when I'm working with a peacekeeper, it's taking a deep breath. It's thinking about their perspective. It's thinking about, how do I address them from a space of being calm? Because the peacekeeper, you can overpower a peacekeeper. If you ask a peacekeeper to go to their least favorite restaurant for lunch, they're going to say, awesome, let's go there. Because they want calm. They don't want conflict. They want rhythm. They want peace. The next one, if we're coaching, is the friend maker. And the friend makers are driven by moments of genuine connection. And the friend maker here, when I'm going to talk to them potentially about some of their confidence challenges, if I'm moving from inner coach to outer coach, if I've now become my own great executive coach and I want to become a great executive coach for others, they want genuine connection. What's going on? Tell me about you. Tell me about what matters to you. Tell me about what your values are. You matter to me. This relationship matters to me. That permission, that self-assessment, that questioning before judgment allows that rapport to be built. Next is inquisitor, and inquisitors are driven by moments of clarity. So the inquisitors, right? The friend maker is the most loyal friend in the world until they're not. So if you stab a friend maker in the back, if you go against them, they'll have a long memory. Inquisitors are driven by those questions that everyone else is afraid to ask. They'll ask and talk through the details. So for the inquisitor, they're driven by moments of clarity. So if I'm talking to an inquisitor, I'm going to ask them great questions. Hey, what did you think about this situation? What do you think? What are we missing here? What are the challenges that we're going to face? What are the challenges that you're facing in your life, and helping that person get clarity? Next then is the negotiator. Negotiators are driven by moments of agreement. So negotiators have a preferred future and they know what I want. Sometimes they can be a little political. Sometimes they can take a little bit longer to build that consensus. However, if I'm working with a negotiator, I'm thinking, okay, what do you want? What does success look like for you? I know you know what it looks like. I know you have a picture. How do I help you get there? What role can I play to partner with you in moving this initiative forward? The next one is driver. Drivers are driven by moments of progress. They need to see progress and things moving. Full disclosure, I'm a driver. So progress, urgency, movement, getting traction. When things stall, they get really frustrated. Drivers struggle with listening, struggle slowing down. They're listening with the intent to respond. And so for drivers, when I'm meeting with a driver, I'm going, hey, what does success look like for you? What is the urgency we need? What is the pace you want? Are we moving fast enough for you? Are we achieving the results that you want? How can I help you with that? And then finally, the convincer, they're driven by moments of accomplishment. When they see a problem, they see steps from 1 to 27. So as a confident leader, I need to know that this convincer is coming in with a predestined, path to success. They already see exactly what they want, and they're often unwilling, inflexible in how that plays out. So what do I do with a convincer? Hey, who needs to be involved? What do you think the plan looks like? Are you open to some suggestions here in this part? And when we know that, when we go into these confidence profiles, instead of judging the behavior of the profiles that aren't like ours, the profiles that might trigger us, the profiles that might frustrate us, instead of going in with our judgments, instead of going in saying, you really need to be thinking about this, we go in with a self-assessing curiosity. I want to learn more about you. I want to ask great, humble questions. That's what we go into with the confidence profiles. And there's 2 ways that you can access these. So I want to share some best practices today, things that you can do coming out of today. One is there's a free confidence assessment called the Confidence Profile, and it's on my website, benfauske.com. You can go, you can have every single person on your team, your neighbors, your friends, your colleagues, all of them can download this assessment and they'll get their confidence profile and they'll learn which of the 6 confidence profiles they are. And you'll say, oh my gosh, you're a friend maker. I'm a negotiator. You're an inquisitor. And it's already you're gonna laugh about it. You're gonna have new insights. It's a brief report. It's a 4-page report that you're gonna get that you could do tomorrow with your team. Another assessment that we've created is called the MyCon Pro. And this is one that we've just designed for the Confident Leader Formula. And the Confident Leader Formula is gonna be coming out in October. And we've just designed this assessment for the Confident Leader Formula specifically. So it covers your inner critic to inner coach process. It covers the inner coach to outer coach process. It covers the outer coach to confident communicators. We've designed it for this program. We've designed it for you to understand at a deep dive, what are the core issues that I'm facing? I have this one life to live. This chronic anxiety is driving me crazy. The negative, I want 2022 to be the year that I end my negative self-talk, that it stops taking over, that it stops running my life, that it stops holding me back. This is the year I want it to end. We designed this assessment to help you through that process. So in this assessment, there's each confidence profile is identified. We give you tools on how to coach and work with all 6 confidence profiles. So when we go back to this slide here, in the MyCon Pro assessment, we take a deep dive into all 6 of these profiles and how you can best coach each one. And when that process, when you go through that process for yourself, again, when you get healthy for yourself, then what does the coaching look like for others? You simply apply the process that you learned for yourself. You apply the exact same process with others. So I've been coaching thousands of people on this now. I recommend, hey, trust the process. The process works. We've tweaked it and we've gotten great coaching and great insight. So if you go through this process, and it's a 6-month virtual coaching process is what it is. So we have 2 live sessions every month. I'm teaching those sessions live. We have office hours and Q&A where you can get some individual coaching time with us during office hours. And it's essentially designed to take this MyCon Pro assessment, give you a deep dive understanding of it, help you understand how to build confidence for yourself and how to build confidence in others, and then how to communicate that. So that's what it is. And so what can you do coming out of this? Best practices for our best practice for our outer coach process here. Step 1, we just talked about this. If you want to send people to the free confidence profile, you can go to benfauske.com. Right there on the homepage, it's going to say take our free confidence assessment. You'll be able to take that. When you're done with that, then you customize your approach based on the individual coaching needs, based on what their confidence profile is. And so if someone's a peacekeeper, if someone's a driver, you're going to approach them really differently. So simply by self-assessing, without judging, without telling them what they are or what they aren't, you're able to have them take this assessment, learn what they are, their self-discovery that they have, and then you can have a fun conversation. And ultimately, where we all must end as leaders to be effective is we got to be able to communicate to all 6 confidence profiles. We have to do it quickly. We have to do it in an effective way, because what often happens is we communicate in our own style. So I'm a driver, I'm moving fast, I communicate it in an urgent style. But if I'm not careful, and I don't think about all the profiles that I'm communicating to, and I don't have a strategy for each of those 6, because there are certain times. So what's different from this profile than others? So Myers-Briggs or a DISC assessment or a Hogan assessment, some that you've taken, it's more of a fixed state assessment. In other words, most times you take it, you're going to be the same for your life. The confidence profile assessment is designed for you to be able to move as a leader up and down in all 6 profiles. So I was working with one client, and she came in and she was locked into a peacekeeper profile. That's who she was. That's where she was comfortable. And her inability to move up and down this continuum was really hurting her relationships, and it was impacting her effectiveness at work. So we went through the confident leader formula, and at the end of it, she said, Ben, this is when I have to be a negotiator. This is when I have to be a convincer. This is when I have to be a driver. And the freedom that she felt to say, I have influence now with all the people I work with. I only used to have influence with the friend makers and peacekeepers. Those are the only people that I used to have great relationships with. She's like, now I have great relationships with all 6 of these profiles. We had one person that came into the program because we launched the Confident Leader Formula this summer, and we sent 25 people through it this summer. And one person that went through it is now coaching confidence as a business. They're literally taking the process that they learned, and they started their own business now coaching people how to do this. And so the investment that they made in the coaching program, they've far exceeded that in revenue that they've earned off of coaching others. And there's a person on this call who took this coaching process and is coaching inside his organization. And he used to be in finance, and he was a finance guy, and he really loved this coaching piece. So he actually is transitioning his entire role into coaching confidence in others. It started with his own work, his own internal work. And oh, by the way, when we move through our inner critic, guess what that gives us permission to do? Is when we can coach others, because we can have empathy for the negative self-talk that they have. And when I open up and I say, I have 8 jobs in 8 years and I was miserable and I was a confidence train wreck, guess what happens when I'm coaching others? They say, Ben relates. He gets it. He gets what I'm dealing with. He gets the anxiety and the negative self-talk that I'm in. And so that's the power of this best practice, is you start to become an expert in understanding the profiles, understanding how they work. And each profile has 6 sub-traits that makes that profile, that drives that profile's behavior. So with the Mycon Pro, you'll actually learn all 36 subtraits that make up that profile, which gives you a deep and rich understanding to stay out of judgment and stay in the self-assessment category to become an extremely effective coach. And again, we start with understanding ourselves and the 6 traits that relate to us, and then we end up understanding everyone else's traits. So in order to communicate to all 6 profiles, we have to understand a communication strategy. And what we're going to be getting into next is, how do you take your confidence story in a really brief strategy? You can learn how to communicate confidence to all 6 profiles, and it works at any place, at any time, and in any way. You can communicate your confidence story to any audience without anxiety, without fear. So imagine what your life would be like if you could communicate to any audience your story in a powerful way that drew people in to your life. That's the final stage that we teach in the Confident Leader Formula, and that's what we're going to be covering next.